The rain had started before Daniel's funeral. By the time the family walked out of the church, the sky was almost black. Michael Hayes stood under a large black umbrella. He was 69 years old, and he had just buried his only son. Daniel had been 38. He had been the kind of son who called his father every Sunday morning, even when he was busy, even when he was tired. Michael still remembered those calls. "Dad, are you awake?" That was always how Daniel started. Now there would be no more Sunday calls. No more knock on the door. No more voice from the other side of the phone. Michael looked at the fresh grave across the cemetery. His hands shook. He wanted to stay there forever, but people were already leaving. His relatives were getting into their cars. Some hugged him, some said they were sorry, some simply looked away because they did not know what to say. Then Michael saw Victoria, Daniel's wife. She stood near the black car. She was dressed in a long dark coat. Her face looked sad. At least from a distance. But Michael noticed something strange. She was not crying. Not anymore. She was watching the people leave, almost as if she were waiting for something. Michael slowly walked toward her. Victoria looked at him. "Michael," she said quietly. He stopped. "Yes, we need to talk." Michael expected her to say something about Daniel. Maybe something about the funeral. Maybe she needed help. Instead, she looked around to make sure nobody was close enough to hear. Then she said 5 words that Michael would never forget. "Pack your bags before everyone leaves." Michael stared at her. For several seconds, he thought grief had made him hear her wrong. "What did you say?" Victoria sighed. "I said you need to pack your things." Michael looked toward the cemetery, then back at her. "This is Daniel's house, I know. He was my son. I know that too." Her voice was cold now. "Which is why this needs to happen today." Michael felt something break inside him. His son had been buried less than an hour ago, and his wife was already talking about removing his father from the house. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked. Victoria shrugged. "Anywhere you want." Michael could not believe what he was hearing. He had lived in Daniel's house for almost 3 years. Daniel had invited him there after Michael's wife died. "You shouldn't be alone," Daniel had told him. "You can stay with us as long as you want." Those words had saved Michael during the hardest year of his life. Now Victoria wanted him gone. Michael lowered his voice. "Did Daniel ask you to do this?" For the first time, Victoria hesitated. Only for a second. Then she answered, "Daniel isn't here anymore." Michael looked at her carefully. "No," he said. "He isn't." Victoria stepped closer. "The house belongs to me now." Michael's eyes narrowed. "Did Daniel leave a will?" Victoria's expression changed, just slightly. "He made arrangements." "What arrangements?" "That is none of your concern." Michael almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, because the whole situation felt unreal. His son had just been buried, and Victoria was already claiming everything. Before Michael could answer, Victoria's brother Marcus walked over. Marcus put a hand on Victoria's shoulder. "Everything okay?" Victoria immediately changed her face. She looked heartbroken again. "She doesn't understand," she said softly. Michael noticed the word "she." Victoria had spoken about him as if he were not standing there. Marcus looked at Michael. "Victoria just thinks it's better if you stay somewhere else for a while." Michael stared at him. "A while?" "Yes, for how long?" Marcus looked away. Victoria answered, "Permanently." The word hit harder than Michael expected. He looked at the two of them. Neither seemed ashamed. That hurt more than the demand itself. Michael had spent the last 20 years helping Daniel build his life. He had helped him buy his first house. He had helped him start his small construction company. He had even worked beside him after Daniel's business began growing. And now, at his own son's funeral, they were treating him like a stranger. Michael slowly nodded. "All right." Victoria looked surprised. "All right, yes." He turned toward the car. "I'll pack." Victoria smiled. It was a small smile, almost invisible, but Michael saw it. She thought she had won. She thought he was broken. She thought he had nowhere to go. She did not know what Daniel had told his father 3 weeks before his death. 3 weeks earlier, Daniel had visited Michael alone. He had looked nervous. Michael had asked him what was wrong. Daniel had sat at the kitchen table. "Dad, if something ever happens to me." Michael had immediately interrupted him. "Don't talk like that." Daniel had looked toward the hallway. Then he lowered his voice. "I mean it. What happened?" "I can't explain everything yet, Daniel. I just need you to promise me something." Michael remembered the look in his son's eyes. Fear. Real fear. "What?" if Victoria ever tells you to leave the house. Daniel had paused. Then he had said something Michael did not understand at the time. Don't argue with her. Michael had stared at him. Why? Just leave. Daniel had reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small envelope. He placed it on the table. Keep this somewhere safe. Michael had taken it. What is it? You'll know when you need it. Then Daniel had stood up. Before leaving, he turned around. Dad, yes, if I don't get the chance to explain. Daniel's voice had almost broken. Trust me, Michael had never forgotten those words. Now, standing beside Daniel's grave, he finally understood the first part of the warning. Victoria was telling him to leave, exactly as Daniel had predicted. But there was one thing she did not know. Michael had never opened that envelope. He had been too afraid. He had kept it hidden inside an old metal box in his bedroom. Now he needed to see what was inside. Michael returned to Daniel's house that evening. Victoria was already there. She was speaking on the phone. Yes, she said. He'll be gone tonight. Michael stopped in the hallway. She did not know he was listening. No, she continued. He doesn't know anything. Michael's heart began beating faster. Who was she talking to? And what did she mean by anything? He quietly walked upstairs. He entered his room. He locked the door. Then he opened the metal box. The envelope was still there. Michael slowly pulled it out. His son's handwriting was on the front. 3 simple words. For Dad only. Michael opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. He read the first sentence. Then his hands began to shake. Daniel had written, Dad, if Victoria is telling you to leave after my funeral, then everything I feared has already begun. Michael stopped breathing for a moment. He read the next line, then the next. His face went pale. Because Daniel had not only warned him about Victoria, he had written down a name. A name Michael had never heard before, and beneath that name were 4 words that made his blood run cold. Do not trust him. Michael looked toward the locked bedroom door. For the first time that day, his grief was replaced by something else. Fear. Because whatever Daniel had discovered before his death, Victoria clearly wanted it buried with him. And now Michael was the only person left who could uncover it. Michael stared at the name on the paper, Adrian Cole. He had never heard it before, not once. Daniel had written the name in dark ink. Under it were 4 words. Do not trust him. Michael read the sentence again. Then, he turned the paper over. There was nothing else. No explanation. No address. No phone number. Just the name. Michael sat on the edge of the bed. His hands were still shaking. Who was Adrian Cole? And why had Daniel been afraid of him? A soft knock came from the hallway. Michael quickly folded the paper. He placed it back inside the envelope. Then he hid the envelope beneath a stack of old clothes. Michael. It was Victoria. He said nothing. The door opened slightly. Victoria looked inside. Are you packed? Michael looked at her. Almost. She stepped into the room. Her eyes moved around. She looked at the closet. Then the drawers. Then the metal box on the table. Michael noticed it. Immediately, Victoria's eyes stopped on the box. What is that? Nothing. She smiled. It looks important. Michael closed the box. It belonged to my wife. Victoria stared at him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said, You should not take everything. Michael frowned. Everything. Daniel's things. Michael slowly stood. They are my son's things. I know. Then why are you telling me what I can take? Victoria crossed her arms. Because Daniel's property belongs to me now. Michael looked at her. You keep saying that. Because it's true, is it? Victoria's face hardened. You should be careful, Michael. He said nothing. She stepped closer. You are grieving. You are not thinking clearly. Michael felt his jaw tighten. I know exactly what I am thinking. Victoria looked toward the metal box again. Then she walked out. Michael waited until he heard her footsteps disappear. He locked the door. Then he pulled the envelope out again. He needed answers. But before he could read the letter again, his phone rang. It was Daniel's old accountant, Robert Mills. Michael answered. Hello. Robert's voice was low. Michael, where are you? At Daniel's house. There was a pause. Are you alone? Michael looked at the bedroom door. No. Robert lowered his voice. Then listened carefully. Michael sat down. What happened? Daniel came to see me 2 weeks before he died. Michael's heart sank. What did he say? He asked me to review some transfers from the company account. What kind of transfers? Large ones. Michael looked toward the door. How large? Robert gave him the amount. Michael went silent. It was almost $100,000. Where did the money go? That is the problem. Robert paused. Some went to a company I didn't recognize. What company? Cole Financial Services. Michael froze. The name hit him like a punch. Cole. He looked down at Daniel's letter. Adrian Cole. Robert, Michael said slowly. Who owns that company? There was silence. Then Robert answered. Adrian Cole. Michael stood up. His son's warning suddenly made sense. But Robert was not finished. There is something else. What? Daniel told me not to discuss this with Victoria. Michael closed his eyes. Why? He said she would try to stop the investigation. Michael's voice became quiet. Did Daniel tell you he was afraid of her? No. Robert hesitated. He was afraid of someone else. Who? Adrian. Michael gripped the phone tighter. Before he could ask another question, Robert said something that made his stomach drop. Michael, Daniel also told me that if he died, I should give you access to a private account. What private account? I don't know. Then how can I access it? I can't. Why? Because Daniel left the instructions with his lawyer. Michael stared at the floor. Who is the lawyer? Thomas Reed. Michael wrote the name down. Then Robert said, do not call from Daniel's house. Michael looked toward the door. Why? Because Daniel believed someone was monitoring his phone. The call ended. Michael stood completely still. For several seconds, he could not move. Then he heard something downstairs. Drawer closing. He quietly opened his bedroom door. The hallway was empty. Michael walked down the stairs. Victoria was standing in Daniel's study. She was holding a folder. Michael stopped. What are you doing? Victoria turned. Her face went pale for half a second. Then she smiled, looking for some documents. Which documents? Daniel's insurance papers. Michael looked at the folder. He recognized it. It was the same folder Daniel had kept locked in his desk. Put it down. Victoria laughed softly. You don't give orders here. Michael walked closer. That desk was Daniel's, and now it's mine. Why are you so interested in his papers? Victoria's expression changed. Because I am his wife. Michael looked at the folder. Then why are you afraid of what his father might find? Victoria stared at him. She stepped forward. What did you say? Michael said nothing. Victoria's eyes narrowed. You have been talking to someone. No. You're lying. Michael almost smiled. You seem very worried. Victoria grabbed the folder. You need to leave tonight. I already said I would. No. Her voice became sharp. You need to leave now. Michael looked at the clock. It is almost midnight. I don't care. Where am I supposed to go? That isn't my problem. Michael looked at her. Then he noticed something. The folder she was holding had a corner sticking out, a photograph. Victoria quickly tried to hide it, but Michael had already seen the face. It was Adrian Cole. He recognized him from Daniel's letter. Michael reached for the photograph. Victoria pulled it away. Don't touch that. Who is he? No one. Then why is his picture in Daniel's private files? Victoria said nothing. Michael watched her carefully. Then she made a mistake. He has nothing to do with Daniel. Michael's eyes narrowed. I never said Daniel's name. Victoria froze. Michael understood. She knew. She knew exactly who Adrian was, and she knew Daniel had discovered something. Victoria turned away. Go upstairs. Michael did not move. Victoria. She looked back. What? Did Daniel know Adrian? Her face became cold. Pack your bags. Michael knew he had found something, not the whole truth, but enough to know that Daniel's warning was real. He returned upstairs. He quietly packed a small bag, but he did not leave. Instead, he waited. Around 1 in the morning, he heard footsteps outside his door. They stopped. The handle slowly moved. Michael held his breath. The door did not open. The footsteps moved away. Then he heard the front door. Downstairs. Someone entered the house. Michael looked at his phone. It was 1:17 a.m. He quietly opened his bedroom door. He moved toward the stairs. A man's voice came from the study. Did you find it? Michael froze. It was not Victoria's voice. It was a man's voice. Victoria answered quietly. No. You told me he was leaving tonight. He is. What about the envelope? Michael's heart stopped. The envelope. They were talking about Daniel's envelope. The man spoke again. If Michael has it, we're finished. Michael slowly stepped backward. His heart was pounding. He reached into his pocket and felt the folded letter. Victoria and Adrian knew about it, but there was something even Worse. The man suddenly said. Daniel couldn't have hidden everything, Victoria answered. He didn't. Then where is the rest? Michael's blood ran cold. There was more than the letter, more than the financial records. More than the secret account. Then Adrian said something that Michael would remember for the rest of his life. Tomorrow morning, we make the old man disappear from this house for good. Michael quietly backed away from the stairs. He returned to his room, locked the door. And finally understood the truth. Victoria had never simply wanted him out. She was afraid of what he might discover. And now Michael knew something she did not. Daniel had prepared for this. Somewhere in the house was another secret, a secret so important that Adrian was willing to risk everything to find it. Michael looked at the envelope in his hand. Then he looked for Daniel's old study. And for the first time, he wondered whether his son had left something behind. Something Victoria and Adrian had been searching for all along. Michael stayed inside his room until he heard the front door close. The house became silent again, but he knew he was no longer safe. Adrian had come into the house. Victoria had spoken to him. And both of them were searching for something Daniel had hidden. Michael looked at the envelope in his hand. For a moment, he wanted to call the police, but he stopped. He had no proof. He could not explain who Adrian was. He could not explain what Daniel had discovered. And most importantly, he did not know what Daniel had hidden. Michael sat on the edge of the bed. His son's photograph was sitting on the nightstand. Daniel was smiling in it. A young man. Happy. Alive. Michael touched the frame. You knew, he whispered. You knew this was coming. The words brought tears to his eyes. Daniel had tried to warn him. Michael had ignored the warning because he thought his son was simply stressed. Now Daniel was gone, and Michael was beginning to understand how serious the situation had been. He opened the envelope again. There was one more line beneath Daniel's warning. Michael had not noticed it before. It said, if they ask about the blue box, tell them you never saw it. Michael frowned. Blue box. He had never seen a blue box. Or had he? He thought about Daniel's study, the old bookshelf. The large wooden desk, the filing cabinet. Then he remembered something. 3 months earlier, Daniel had moved an old blue storage box from the garage into the study. Michael had asked him what was inside. Daniel had smiled. Just old papers. Michael had forgotten about it. Until now, he quietly left his bedroom. The hallway was dark. He walked toward the study. He expected the door to be locked. It was open. Michael stopped. The room looked different. Drawers were open. Papers were scattered across the desk. Someone had searched it. Adrian. Michael entered carefully. He looked around. Then he noticed the bookshelf. One shelf had a small gap. He moved several books aside. Behind them was a narrow space, but there was no blue box. Michael's heart sank. Someone had found it first. He searched the room again. Nothing. Then he heard a sound behind him. Michael turned. Victoria stood in the doorway. She looked exhausted. But her eyes were sharp. What are you doing? Michael said nothing. Victoria walked into the room. You should be packing. I was looking for my son's photographs. You have enough. Michael looked at her. Where is the blue box? Victoria froze, only for a second. But Michael saw it. Her face changed. What blue box? Michael smiled slightly. You tell me. Victoria stepped closer. There is no blue box. Michael did not answer. She looked nervous now. Go back upstairs. Why? Because you don't understand what you're dealing with. Michael's expression became serious. Neither do you. Victoria stared at him. Then she walked out. Michael waited. He listened to her footsteps. She went downstairs. A few seconds later, he heard her make a phone call. Someone told him about the box. Michael's blood ran cold. Victoria was talking to Adrian. He knows about it, she whispered. There was a pause. Then she said, no, I don't think he has it. Michael moved away from the door. He had to find the box before they did, but where? He remembered Daniel's study. The bookshelf. The desk. The closet. Then another memory came back. Daniel had once told him that the house had a small crawl space beneath the stairs. Michael had never seen it. He moved into the hallway. The small door was hidden behind a coat rack. He pulled the rack aside. There was a wooden panel. Michael opened it. Inside was a narrow space. He reached in. His fingers touched something cold. Metal. He pulled it out. A small blue box. Michael's heart raced. He carried it into the study. The box was locked. There was no key. He searched Daniel's desk. Nothing. Then he remembered Daniel's watch. the old watch he had carried at the funeral. Michael pulled it from his pocket. He turned it over. There was a tiny mark on the back, a small keyhole. Michael stared at it. Daniel had given him the watch for a reason. He carefully removed the back cover. Inside was a tiny metal key. Michael inserted it into the blue box. The lock clicked. He opened the lid. Inside were several documents, a flash drive, a small black notebook, and a photograph. Michael picked up the photograph first. It showed Daniel standing outside a restaurant. Beside him was Adrian. But Adrian was not alone. There was another person in the photograph. Victoria. Michael's stomach tightened. They had known each other for much longer than he thought. He opened the notebook. The first page contained a date, March 14th. Under it, Daniel had written, "Victoria and Adrian are working together." Michael turned the page. More notes. Dates. Amounts of money. Names. Bank accounts. Daniel had been tracking everything. Michael's eyes filled with tears. His son had spent months investigating the people closest to him. Then Michael saw something that made him stop. Daniel had written, "The money is not the real reason." Michael turned the page. There was another sentence. "They are looking for something inside the company records." Michael kept reading. Daniel believed Adrian had been using Victoria to gain control of the company. But why? What did the company records contain? Michael picked up the flash drive. He had no computer in the room. He needed to leave. He placed everything back into the box. Then he heard the front door open. Michael froze. Someone had returned. He grabbed the blue box. He turned off the steady light. Then he hid behind the curtain. Footsteps entered the house. Adrian. Michael recognized his voice. "Victoria, I am here." They walked toward the study. Michael held his breath. Adrian entered first. He looked around. Then Victoria followed. "You said he didn't have the box." "I don't think he does." Adrian looked at the desk. "The old man is smarter than we thought." Victoria whispered, "We need to get him out tonight." Adrian shook his head. "No." "Why?" "Because if he leaves before we find the box, he could take the evidence with him." Victoria looked worried. "What are we going to do?" Adrian answered calmly. "We make him believe he has nowhere to go." Michael felt his stomach tighten. Victoria asked, "How?" Adrian looked toward the staircase. "Tomorrow morning, the bank account will be frozen." Michael's eyes widened. "His account, all of it." Victoria looked nervous. "And his phone?" "Already handled." Michael almost moved. Then Adrian said, "And there is one more thing." "What?" "We have a witness." Victoria stared at him. "Who?" Adrian smiled. "Someone Michael trusts." Michael's heart sank. Who could it be? "A relative, a friend, Robert, Thomas, someone from Daniel's company." Michael waited, but Adrian did not say the name. Instead, he took out his phone. "We'll deal with the old man tomorrow." Victoria nodded. They left the study. Michael waited until he heard the front door close. Then he stepped out from behind the curtain. His hands were shaking. They had planned everything. His bank account, his phone, his reputation, even someone he trusted. Michael looked down at the blue box. He knew he could not stay in that house. He needed help. Real help. He needed Thomas Reed. But when he reached for his phone, the screen went black. No signal. Michael tried again. Nothing. Then he remembered Adrian's words. And his phone, already handled. Michael walked to the window. Outside, a car was parked across the street. The same black car he had seen at the funeral. Someone was sitting inside, watching the house. Michael closed the curtains. He had never felt so alone. Then his eyes fell on the flash drive. That was the one thing Adrian and Victoria did not know he had. Michael needed a computer. He needed Thomas. And he needed to get out before morning. He put the flash drive inside his coat. Then he grabbed the blue box. But as he opened the back door, a voice came from behind him. "Going somewhere, Michael?" He froze. Slowly, he turned. Victoria stood in the kitchen. She was holding his son's old hunting knife. Her face was calm. To calm. She looked at the blue box in his hands. Then she smiled. "You found it." Michael said nothing. Victoria took one step closer. "And now," she whispered, "we need to talk about what Daniel told you before he died." Michael stared at her. Because he suddenly realized something. Victoria wasn't asking what was inside the box. She already knew. She was afraid of what was inside the flash drive, and that meant Daniel had hidden one final secret. A secret powerful enough to destroy everything Victoria had built. Michael stood near the back door. The blue box was in his hands. Victoria stood between him and the kitchen. She was still holding Daniel's old hunting knife, but Michael noticed something strange. Her hand was shaking. She was afraid, not of him, of what was inside the box. Michael kept his voice calm. What did Daniel tell you? Victoria stared at him. You know what I mean. No. You know exactly what I mean. Michael looked at the knife. Put that down. Victoria laughed. You are in no position to give orders. Michael looked at her carefully. You are scared. Her smile disappeared. I am not scared of you. Then why are you holding a knife? Victoria did not answer. Michael slowly placed the blue box on the kitchen table. Victoria's eyes followed it. Open it. Michael shook his head. You already know what's inside. Then open it. Why? Because I want to see what Daniel left. Michael almost smiled. You've already searched the house for it. Victoria stepped closer. Open it. Michael looked toward the window. The black car was still outside. Adrian was waiting. Michael knew he could not fight both of them. He needed time. So he nodded. All right. He slowly opened the box. Victoria moved closer. She looked inside. The documents were still there. The notebook. The photograph. But the flash drive was gone. Victoria's eyes widened. Where is it? Michael looked at her. What, the drive? Michael said nothing. Victoria's face changed. Where did you put it? I don't know what you're talking about. She slammed her hand against the table. Give it to me? Michael stepped back. For the first time, he saw panic in her eyes. Then the front door opened. Adrian entered. He looked at Michael. Then at Victoria. What's happening? He has the drive, Victoria said. Adrian's expression became cold. Where? Michael looked at him. So you're Adrian Cole. Adrian stopped. You know my name. Michael nodded. Daniel warned me about you. Adrian's face changed, only for a moment, but Michael saw it. You have no idea what Daniel knew, Adrian said. Michael answered quietly. Maybe not. He picked up the blue box. But I'm about to find out. Adrian stepped forward. Michael moved toward the table. Don't. Adrian stopped. Michael looked at the knife in Victoria's hand. Then at Adrian. If either of you comes closer, the evidence goes somewhere you can't reach. Adrian frowned. What does that mean? Michael pulled out his phone. The screen still showed no signal, but he pretended otherwise. I already sent copies. Victoria looked at Adrian. Copies? Adrian stared at Michael. Where? Michael smiled. That's the part you should worrying about. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Adrian slowly lowered his hands. Let's talk. Michael nodded. Now you want to talk. You don't understand the situation. No. Michael's voice became firm. You don't understand me. Adrian looked at Victoria. Then back at Michael. We can make this easy. How? You leave tonight. Michael laughed softly. You already told me that. And you walk away with enough money to live comfortably. Michael stared at him. You are trying to buy me. Adrian shrugged. I'm trying to prevent something worse. Michael's eyes narrowed. What could be worse? Adrian did not answer. That silence told Michael more than words could. Michael picked up the blue box. I want the truth. Adrian shook his head. You really don't. Michael stepped closer. My son is dead. His voice broke. You took his money. He looked at Victoria. You tried to take his house. Then he looked at Adrian. And now you're standing in my son's kitchen, telling me to walk away. Michael's eyes filled with tears. No. He shook his head. This ends now. Adrian stared at him. Then he said something Michael never expected. Daniel was going to destroy you too. Michael froze. What? Adrian reached into his coat. Victoria looked nervous. Adrian pulled out a document. He had plans to move everything out of this house. Michael looked at the paper. That is a lie. Is it? Adrian placed the document on the table. Michael read it. It was a draft property agreement. His name appeared on it. So did Victoria's. Michael felt confused. Why would Daniel prepare such a document? Adrian watched his reaction. Daniel was hiding money from everyone. Michael looked up. My son would never do that. Adrian smiled. You didn't know him as well as you think. That sentence hurt. Michael's face tightened. You are trying to make me doubt him. I'm showing you the truth. Michael looked at the document again. Something was wrong. The signature looked like Daniel's. But there was something about it. The letters were too clean. Too careful. Michael had seen Daniel's handwriting thousands of times. This was not right. He looked at the date. It was dated 3 days after Daniel had died. Michael looked up. Adrian realized his mistake. Michael slowly said, This was signed after my son was dead. Adrian's face went blank. Victoria looked at him. You said it was from before. Adrian did not answer. Michael understood. The document was fake. And they had just admitted it without realizing it. Michael picked it up. This is evidence. Adrian moved toward him. Michael stepped back. Don't. Adrian stopped. Michael suddenly felt stronger. Not because he was young. Not because he could fight them. Because for the first time, he knew they were afraid. Michael put the document inside the blue box. Then he closed it. I am leaving, Victoria laughed. You think we'll let you? Michael looked at her. I don't need your permission. He walked toward the door. Adrian grabbed his arm. Michael pulled away. Let go. Adrian tightened his grip. Then a loud knock came from outside. Everyone froze. Another knock. Then a voice. Mr. Hayes. Michael recognized it. Thomas Reed, Daniel's lawyer. Victoria's face went white. Adrian stepped away. Thomas knocked again. Mr. Hayes, are you inside? Michael walked toward the door. Victoria whispered. Don't open it. Michael looked back at her. Why? She said nothing. Michael opened the door. Thomas stood outside. Beside him was Robert Mills. And behind them stood two police officers. Michael stared at them. What are you doing here? Thomas looked past him. Your phone stopped working. Michael's eyes widened. How did you know? Daniel gave me instructions. Thomas looked at Victoria. Then at Adrian. His expression became serious. He told me that if you ever stopped answering your phone after his death, I was supposed to come here immediately. Victoria stepped forward. This is private property. One of the officers looked at her. Mom, we need everyone to remain calm. Adrian turned toward the back door. The second officer noticed. Sir, don't move. Adrian stopped. Thomas looked at Michael. Do you have the box? Michael nodded. Thomas single quotes S eyes moved toward it. Then we need to leave, Victoria shouted. You can't take anything from this house, Thomas answered calmly. It does not belong to you. Victoria became furious. You have no idea what Daniel wanted. Thomas looked at her. Yes. He paused. I know exactly what Daniel wanted. The room went silent. Thomas reached into his briefcase. He pulled out a sealed envelope. This was delivered to my office by Daniel. Victoria stared at it. What is that? Thomas looked at Michael. Your son changed his estate plan 2 days before he died. Michael's heart stopped. What did he change? Thomas handed him the envelope. Michael opened it. Inside was a new legal document. The house, Daniel's company, several accounts, and a large part of his property. None of it was going to Victoria. Michael read the final page. His hands trembled. Daniel had placed everything into a protected trust, and Michael was named as the trustee. Victoria stared at him. Double quotes, no. Double quotes. Michael looked up. Thomas continued. Daniel also left specific instructions about what should happen if anyone tried to force you out of this house. Michael looked at Victoria. She was no longer pretending to be sad. Her face was filled with anger. What did he write? Michael asked. Thomas hesitated. Then he said, he told me that if Victoria ever ordered you to leave during the funeral. Thomas looked directly at Victoria. The entire estate was to be frozen until an investigation was completed. Victoria stepped backward. Adrian's face became pale. Michael finally understood. Daniel had planned for this. The funeral, the eviction, the missing documents. Everything. But Thomas was not finished. There is one more instruction. Michael looked at him. What? Thomas lowered his voice. Daniel told me never to open this unless Victoria and Adrian were together inside the house. Michael looked at Victoria. Then Adrian. Thomas broke the seal on a second envelope. He pulled out a small memory card. This contains Daniel's final recorded statement. Victoria's face lost all color. Michael stared at the memory card. What is on it? Thomas looked at him. Your son recorded a conversation before his death. Michael swallowed. Who was he talking to? Thomas looked toward Adrian. Then Victoria. And finally Michael. Both of them. The room went silent, because Michael suddenly realized the revenge had not even begun. Daniel had left behind one final weapon, and whatever was recorded on that tiny memory card could expose the truth about everything, even the secret Daniel had never told his father. Nobody spoke. Thomas stood in the middle of Daniel's study with the small memory card between his fingers. Victoria stared at it. Adrian looked like he had just seen a ghost. Michael noticed both reactions. That was enough. Whatever Daniel had recorded, they were afraid of it. Michael looked at Thomas. Can we hear it? Thomas nodded. But not here. Adrian immediately stepped forward. You can't just play private recordings. One of the police officers looked at him. Step back, sir. Adrian stopped. Thomas put the memory card into a small device. The room became completely silent. Then Daniel's voice filled the study. Michael froze. He had not heard that voice in weeks. Dad. Michael's eyes filled with tears. Daniel continued. If you're hearing this, then something has gone very wrong. Michael closed his eyes. His son's voice sounded calm, but there was fear underneath it. Daniel explained that he had discovered money moving from his company into several outside accounts. At first, he believed it was simple theft. Then he found the connection. The accounts were controlled by Adrian Cole, but Daniel had also discovered something worse. Victoria had been helping him. Michael looked at Victoria. She was staring at the floor. Daniel's recording continued. I trusted my wife. His voice became quieter. That was my biggest mistake. Victoria shook her head. No, the recording continued. I found messages between Victoria and Adrian. They were planning to take control of the company after my death. Michael's face became pale, but Daniel was not finished. They knew I was investigating them. Adrian suddenly moved toward the device. One of the officers blocked him. Stay where you are. The recording continued. There is something else Dad needs to know. Michael leaned forward. Daniel paused. If I die suddenly, don't assume it was natural. Michael stopped breathing. The room became completely still. Victoria whispered, That's enough, but the recording continued. I found out that someone had been changing my medical records. Michael's eyes widened. Thomas looked at him. Daniel explained that he had been receiving medication that was not listed correctly in his treatment plan. He had confronted the clinic. The clinic claimed it was an error. Daniel did not believe them. So he had begun keeping copies of every prescription. Then came the most disturbing part. Daniel said he had discovered Adrian had a connection to the private medical service that handled some of his records. Michael's hands began to shake. He looked at Adrian. You knew? Adrian said nothing. The recording continued. I don't know if Victoria or Adrian caused anything to happen to me. Daniel's voice became slower. But I know they are hiding something. Michael wiped his eyes. Then Daniel said something that changed everything. Dad, there is one person you must find. Thomas looked at Michael. Daniel named the person. Dr. Samuel Carter. He knows what happened to my medical records. Michael wrote the name down. The recording continued. If I am dead, he may be afraid to speak. Daniel paused, but he has proof. The recording suddenly stopped. The room remained silent. Michael looked at Thomas. That's it. Thomas shook his head. No, he checked the device. There is another file. Victoria stepped backward. Don't play it. Michael looked at her. Why? Victoria did not answer. Thomas played the second file. This time Daniel was not alone. A woman's voice could be heard. Michael did not recognize her. Daniel asked her a question. Are you sure? The woman answered. Yes. Daniel asked. Did Victoria bring Adrian to you? Yes. Michael looked at Victoria. Her face had gone white. The woman continued. She asked me to change Daniel's records. Victoria suddenly shouted. That's a lead. The police officer looked at her. Please remain calm. The woman's voice continued. She said Daniel could not know. Michael felt sick. This was no longer about money. It was about Daniel's health. About records. About someone interfering with his treatment. But the recording ended before the woman revealed what she had changed. Michael looked at Thomas. Who is she? Thomas answered. Daniel never told me her name. Michael stared at the device. The truth was close, but still incomplete. Then Robert spoke. I know that voice. Everyone looked at him. Robert swallowed. She worked for Daniel's company. Michael stepped toward him. Who? Robert hesitated. Laura Bennett. Michael recognized the name. Laura had been Daniel's office manager. She had worked with him for almost 10 years. Robert continued. She disappeared 2 days after Daniel died. Michael's eyes widened. Where is she now? Robert shook his head. No one knows. Adrian suddenly laughed. It was a nervous laugh. You people are chasing ghosts. Michael looked at him. No. He held up the blue box. We are chasing evidence. Adrian's face hardened. You think a few recordings will destroy me? Thomas answered. Not the recordings. He pointed toward the documents, the bank records, then toward the blue box, the forged documents, then toward the memory card, and Daniel's statement. The police officers began collecting everything. Victoria watched them helplessly. Then she looked at Michael. Her expression changed. For the first time, she looked less angry. She looked desperate. Michael, he looked at her. You don't understand. What don't I understand? I never wanted Daniel dead. Michael stared at her. Then tell the truth. Victoria looked at Adrian. He shook his head. Don't. Victoria ignored him. I was afraid. Michael said nothing. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Adrian told me Daniel was going to destroy us. Michael's voice was cold. You stole from him. Yes. You lied to him. Yes. You tried to throw me out of his home. Victoria lowered her head. Yes. Then why should anyone believe you? She looked at him. Because I can tell you what happened the night Daniel died. Michael froze. Thomas stepped forward. Victoria, you should speak with your lawyer. Victoria shook her head. No. She looked at Michael. He deserves to know. Adrian grabbed her arm. You're not saying anything. One officer immediately pulled him away. Let her go. Victoria took a deep breath. Then she spoke. Daniel was alive when I left the house. Michael's heart stopped. What? Victoria continued. He was angry. Why? Because he had found out about Adrian. Michael stared at her. And then? I left. Where did you go? Victoria looked toward Adrian. To meet him. Adrian shook his head. She's lying. Victoria continued. We argued. About what? The money. Michael stepped closer. And Daniel. Victoria's face changed. He called me. When? About an hour later. Michael felt his chest tighten. What did he say? Victoria whispered. He said he knew everything. Michael closed his eyes. Then he asked, what happened next? Victoria looked directly at him. He told me he had already sent copies of his evidence to someone. Michael opened his eyes. Who? Victoria swallowed. I don't know. Thomas frowned. You expect us to believe you don't know. Victoria shook her head. He wouldn't tell me. Michael looked toward the blue box. That explained everything. Daniel had known he was in danger. He had hidden evidence. He had prepared legal protection. He had recorded his statement. But there was still one missing piece. What happened after that phone call? Michael asked again. What happened to Daniel? Victoria began to cry. I don't know. Michael stared at her. Then Adrian suddenly spoke. I do. Everyone turned. Adrian looked exhausted. His confidence was gone. He lowered his head. I know what happened. Victoria stared at him. Adrian. He ignored her. Daniel met someone that night. Michael's heart began pounding. Who? Adrian looked at him. Laura Bennett. Robert stepped backward. What? Adrian continued. Daniel had arranged to meet her because she had the medical records. Michael's face went pale. Where? Adrian hesitated. An old warehouse outside town. Thomas immediately looked at the police officers. One officer began making a call. Michael could barely breathe. Daniel had met Lavra. Lavra had evidence. And Adrian knew about the meeting. Michael asked the question that mattered most. Was Daniel alive when he left that warehouse? Adrian did not answer. Instead, he looked toward Victoria. Then back at Michael. Finally, he whispered. Yes. Michael's eyes widened. What? Adrian swallowed. Daniel was alive when he left. The room fell silent. Michael felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath him. His son had not died when everyone thought he had. Someone had seen him alive afterward. And if that was true, then the story of Daniel's final hours was a lie. Michael turned toward Thomas. We need to find Laura. Thomas nodded. We will. But before anyone could move, Michael's phone suddenly rang. Everyone looked at it. The screen showed an unknown number. Michael answered. He heard breathing. Then a frightened woman's voice whispered. Mr. Hayes. Michael's heart raced. Who is this? The woman paused. Then she said, My name is Laura Bennett. Michael gripped the phone. Where are you? Her voice shook. I don't have much time. Michael stood completely still. What happened to Daniel? There was silence. Then Laura whispered. Your son was alive the morning after everyone believed he was dead. Michael's face went pale. Thomas stared at him. Lavra continued. And I know exactly who was with him. The call suddenly ended. Michael looked at the phone. He had spent days believing he was fighting for justice for a dead son. Now he faced a terrifying possibility. Daniel's death might not have happened when everyone thought. And somewhere in the darkness, there was a person who knew the truth. A person who had been hiding for weeks. A person who had finally decided to speak. But before Michael could call back, another message appeared on his screen. Only 6 words. Don't trust the police. They know. Michael stared at the message. Then he looked at the two officers standing inside Daniel's house. For the first time, he wondered if the danger had been standing beside him all along. Don't trust the police. They know. For several seconds, he could not move. The two officers were still standing inside Daniel's house. One of them noticed Michael's expression. Mr. Hayes. Michael slowly put the phone into his pocket. Yes. Is everything all right? Michael looked at the officer, then at Thomas. Thomas understood immediately. He gave Michael a very small nod. Michael knew he could not speak freely. Not yet. I think I need some air, Michael said. The officer stepped toward him, of course. Michael walked toward the back door, but Thomas quietly followed. Once they were outside, Thomas whispered, "What did the message say?" Michael showed him. Thomas read it. His face became serious. Do you believe it? I don't know, neither do I. They stood beside the house. The rain had stopped. The street was almost empty. Then Robert came outside. I heard what happened. Michael looked at him. Do you know those officers? Robert shook his head. No. Thomas looked toward the house. Then we need to be careful. Michael took out his phone again. He called the unknown number. No answer. He called again. Nothing. Then a message appeared. Come alone. Old train station, 2 a.m. Michael looked at the time. It was 1:35. Thomas immediately shook his head. No. Michael looked at him. She knows what happened to Daniel. And it could be a trap. I know. Thomas took a deep breath. Then nobody goes alone. Michael nodded. They waited. At exactly 2 a.m. Michael arrived near the old train station with Thomas watching from a distance. The station had been abandoned for years. The lights were broken. The platform was empty. Michael stood beneath a damaged sign. Then he heard footsteps. A woman appeared from the darkness. It was Laura Bennett. She looked exhausted. Her hair was messy. She kept looking behind her. Michael stepped forward. Laura? She nodded. Mr. Hayes. Where have you been? Hiding. Why? Laura looked toward the empty road. Because they were looking for me. Michael's voice became quiet. Who? Laura swallowed. Victoria. Michael's heart tightened. What happened to my son? Laura looked at him. He was alive. Michael closed his eyes. He already knew, but hearing it made the truth real. Tell me everything. Laura took a breath. Daniel contacted me the day before he died. She explained that Daniel had discovered someone had changed information in his medical records. He believed the changes were connected to Adrian. Lavra had found copies of the original records. She had agreed to meet Daniel. They met at the warehouse. He was scared, Laura said. But he was not sick enough to die that night. Michael's eyes filled with tears. Then what happened? Laura looked down. Daniel showed me the evidence. What evidence? Financial records, medical records. Messages between Victoria and Adrian. Michael's jaw tightened. Laura continued. Then Daniel received a phone call. From whom? He didn't tell me. He left the warehouse alone. Michael stared at her. Was he alive? Yes. Then where did he go? Laura's voice became weak. He went home. Michael froze. Home? Laura nodded. But he never reached the front door. Michael's heart stopped. What do you mean? A car followed him. Whose car? Laura looked at him. Victoria's. Michael felt sick. What happened? I don't know. Laura took out her phone. I recorded part of the conversation. She played the recording. Daniel's voice could be heard. Victoria, why are you following me? Then Victoria's voice. Because you were going to ruin everything. Daniel answered. You already ruined it. There was shouting. Then a loud sound. The recording ended. Michael's hands shook. What was that sound? Laura looked terrified. I don't know. Where did you get this? Daniel gave me the recorder. Michael looked at Thomas. Thomas stepped closer. Laura, why didn't you come forward? She began crying. Because Adrian found me. He threatened you. Yes. He told me that if I spoke, Daniel's father would be next. Michael felt his anger rise. For weeks, he had been treated like a helpless old man. But now he finally understood. Daniel had not been hiding from his father. He had been protecting him. Michael looked at Lavra. Did Victoria kill him? Laura shook her head. I don't know. That answer hurt. But it was honest. Then Laura said something else. There is one more thing. What? Daniel left another message. Michael's eyes narrowed. For whom? For you. Laura reached into her bag. She pulled out a small envelope. Michael recognized the handwriting immediately. Daniel. His hands trembled as he opened it. There was only one sentence. Dad, if you are reading this, do not seek revenge until you know who helped them. Michael looked up. Who helped them? Laura nodded. That is what Daniel was trying to find. Thomas took the letter. He read it. Then his face changed. What? Thomas looked at Michael. This explains the police message. Michael frowned. Thomas pointed to the final words. Who helped them? Daniel believed someone inside the system was protecting Victoria and Adrian. Michael looked toward the road. The warning on his phone suddenly made sense. Someone had known Laura was speaking. Someone had been watching them. Then headlights appeared. A black SUV turned onto the road. Laura panicked. They found me. Thomas grabbed Michael's arm. Move. They ran behind the old station. The SUV stopped. Two people stepped out. Michael recognized one of them. The same police officer from Daniel's house. Michael's stomach dropped. The officer spoke to the other person. We need to get the woman before she talks. Michael looked at Thomas. Thomas whispered. Now we know. They stayed hidden until the men moved toward the station. Then Thomas called a trusted investigator he had worked with before. Not the local police, a state investigator. This time, they had enough evidence. The recordings, the financial records. The forged documents, Laura's testimony, and Daniel's letters. By morning, everything was moving. The investigation spread quickly. Victoria was questioned again. Adrian was arrested for fraud and evidence tampering. The officer who had been protecting them was suspended and later arrested. Then investigators found the final piece, Daniel's original medical records. They proved someone had changed his treatment information, but they did not prove that Victoria had caused his death. That part remained uncertain. Michael finally received the truth about his son's final hours. Daniel had died from a medical emergency after returning home. The changes to his medical records had made his condition harder to understand. Victoria had not directly killed him, but she had helped hide the truth. She had stolen from him. She had lied to him. She had worked with Adrian, and after Daniel died, she tried to destroy the evidence. That was enough. The case against her became overwhelming. Months later, Victoria stood in court. The woman who had once told Michael to pack his bags could no longer look at him. She had lost the house. She had lost the money. She had lost Adrian. And most importantly, everyone finally knew the truth. Michael did not celebrate. He did not smile. He simply sat quietly, because revenge had never brought his son back, but justice had given Daniel something else. His voice, his truth, his name. After the case ended, Michael returned to Daniel's house. It was quiet, almost peaceful. He walked into the study. The blue box was still there. The old watch sat beside it. Michael picked up the watch. He remembered Daniel placing it in his hand years earlier. Dad, keep this. Michael smiled through his tears. I kept it, son. He looked around the room. For months, this house had felt like a prison. Now it felt different. Daniel's truth had finally been uncovered. Michael opened the final drawer of the desk. Inside was a photograph. Daniel was standing beside his father. They were both laughing. Michael had forgotten the picture existed. He held it close. Then he noticed something written on the back, a short message. Dad, don't let them turn you into an angry man. Michael closed his eyes. Those words broke him. Because Daniel had understood his father better than anyone. He knew Michael would want revenge. But he also knew Michael's heart. Michael placed the photograph back. He did not keep the house for himself. Instead, he sold part of the property and used the money to create a small scholarship in Daniel's name. The rest went into a trust for young workers starting their own businesses. It was exactly the kind of thing Daniel would have wanted. 1 year after the funeral, Michael returned to the cemetery. He stood beside Daniel's grave. There were no cameras. No lawyers. No police. No Victoria. Just a father and his son's name carved into stone. Michael placed Daniel's old watch beside the flowers. Then he whispered, They tried to erase your truth. He paused, but they couldn't. A soft wind moved through the trees. Michael looked toward the sky. For the first time since Daniel died, he felt peace. Victoria had wanted him gone. She had thought he was weak. She had thought grief had made him powerless. She had been wrong. Michael never had to scream. He never had to threaten anyone. He never had to become cruel. He simply followed the truth Daniel had left behind. And one by one, every lie collapsed. As Michael walked away from the grave, his phone rang. It was Thomas. Michael answered. Hello. Thomas sounded surprised. Michael, there is something strange. Michael stopped walking. What? The investigators found another file. Michael's heart tightened. Another file? Yes. What's in it? Thomas paused. We don't know yet. Michael looked back at Daniel's grave. Where was it found? Thomas took a breath. Inside Daniel's old computer. Michael said nothing. Then Thomas added. The file was created 3 days before Daniel died. Michael's face became pale. What is the file called? Thomas read the name. Father. Michael stood completely still. Thomas continued. And Michael? Yes. The file has a password. Michael looked toward the grave. Do you know the password? No. Michael slowly closed